Do you feel you were born for more? Get ready to uncover your God-given purpose so you can impact the world with your gifts, your talents, and your story. Welcome to the Purpose Power Summit. I'm your host, Mimika Cooney, and today's guest is going to share how to find the courage to pursue your dream. Deidra Riggs is an author, a national speaker, a visionary behind life-changing events for writers, artists, entrepreneurs, and other fabulous people who have an amazing dream. Through her engaging and relatable talks, practical and inspiring books, and first-class events, she works to cross cultural boundaries, build bridges with those who are different, and create more peace in the world while making it all feel like a fabulous celebration of life. Well, I'm going to say welcome to the show, Deidra. I'm so excited to have you on the summit today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Well, you have a lot of great nuggets of wisdom to share with everybody, especially about the courage to follow your dream, because you really are one of those inspirational speakers who no holds barred, right? You will just say what it is, bringing people together, and you are very much about, encouraging people to do that. And you've got some great content you're going to share. But before we get into that, tell our audience a little bit about your backstory and how you got started doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty true for all of us. If we think back on our lives, there's probably a common theme that runs through our lives that we may not be aware of, when we're children, but it starts to reveal itself to us as we get older. So I've always loved words, and I think there are many people who are writers who say the same thing. I've just been fascinated by words, and my mom taught me to read at a really young age. That was important to her, and that was a special time for us that we would spend together learning, her teaching me the letters mean this, and when you put them together, they make words, and when you put words together, they make sentences, and you can tell stories with sentences. And I thought that was just fascinating, and you can read a book and go to another world. And then I realized I could write words together too. I don't just read other words, but I have my own words that I can put together and write. So from a young age, I started keeping, I guess back then I thought it was a diary, but now I would say, I was journaling. And I did that a lot of the time just to figure out what was going on inside of me, and especially as I got older, an adolescent and then into teenage years. And then, oh my gosh, the broken hearts and, all of that, the drama that comes with life and growing up. I just was able to understand, it would help me to process what was going on. And then as time went on, as I got older and I had children and then they left and went to college, blogging was starting to become a thing. And I am usually a person who tries something, I made a quilt. I know how to make a quilt. I've put tile on a floor. I know how to do that, but I don't ever have to do it again. And so I said, well, I'm going to try this blogging thing. And that was back in 2008. And I still have a blog, and this is 10 years later. So that really struck a chord with me. So I just started writing as a hobby. And I don't know if people remember old school blogging. It was such a beautiful community and remains so, but things are shifting now. It just really, that community embraced me at a time when I was in transition. We had moved to a new place that was, it was hard for me to find my footing there. And so I found community online. And eventually, someone reached out to me about writing a book. And I had never thought about writing a book before. My husband had said, you should probably write a book. But I thought, I'm a reader. I'm not a writer for people to read the book. Who's going to read my book? But when this person who was an editor, an acquisitions editor at a publishing house reached out to me, then I thought, well, maybe I need to take this more seriously and consider what might be opening in front of me. And I am, and we'll talk about this, I think, a strong believer in going through the doors that open and not trying to push open doors that aren't mine to open or that are closed to me. But this was a door that was open that I had never even really searched for. And so I just kept continued going through those doors, first talking to this acquisitions editor and then to an agent and then to publishers, and eventually ended up with a contract to write a book, and which led to some speaking engagements. And for me, it has just unfolded in that way. I think that's a different story than some others may have, but for me, it has unfolded just going through the door that opens before me. And that sounds really easy. And that's like my 2-minute or maybe 5-minute spiel about it. But there were, of course, some rough spots along the way.
Yeah, but I mean, what I think I love about your story is that, you started with the passion. You started with something that was just inherently you. Like you've been a
Yes.
writer since you were young, and it's not like you were forcing it. And this is what I'm passionate about sharing with people is bringing out those elements that have already been planted in them years ago. But what I love about what you do is you didn't force it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, people say, oh, they just fell into a good, or they call them lucky, but it's not necessarily that. It's
Right.
you positioned yourself to
Mm.
be available. And
Mhm.
how long were you blogging before somebody even said you should write a book? What, a few years
Yeah.
at least?
No, it was a long time. It was probably 4 years that I was
Yeah, I mean,
blogging before.
you were
Yeah.
slogging away, putting
Hmm.
your heart and soul and just doing a great job at what you do best.
Right.
And then those are a lot of the times is this what I call the time in between people don't know about. Well, you know what they say, it takes to become an overnight success only takes like your lifetime to get there,
So true. It's so true. Yes.
But yeah, I just love that inspiring story. So that's what I want you to help our audience sort of draw out of their own stories. It's finding
Mm.
those things. So let's dive into the content. You've got some really great tips based on what you've just shared with us about how we can help others do the same thing as you.
Yeah. Well, I think, as I started to step into that blogging community and just the online writing world, you can see people online who are far ahead of you in the process, and they're having great, what you would call success. And different people define that differently, but you defined success for yourself, and then you see people experiencing it. And for me, and I think many others of us, we then try to mimic that person's process, which it works for some people. That it may just happen that their process worked for you, but that is not going to work all the time. I discovered that trying to mimic what someone else was doing was making me try to be them. And I'm not them. I had to trust who I am, the person that I'm created to be, with my skills and my experience and my worldview and the parents that raised me, and the community that I was raised in. I had to trust that unique person that I am, and the process that I needed to become who I am today. And I don't know who I'll be when I'm 90, but I need to continue to trust who I am. And my husband had, and I've said this in other places, but my husband had a really great mentor my husband is a pastor, and when he was in seminary, they had this preaching class, and one of his mentors said to him, because back in that day, everyone was trying to sound like Martin Luther King. And so this mentor said, don't try to be someone else when you step into the pulpit. Just be yourself. Because if you're trying to be someone else, then the pulpit is empty, because the person you're trying to be isn't there, and neither are you. And I think we can apply that to our life, whatever it
That's
is
very
we're
good advice, right?
pursuing.
Because and then it's almost like it comes across as disingenuous. People can tell.
Exactly.
Almost
Yeah.
like we try too hard,
Hmm.
or we're trying so hard to find that success as opposed to just putting out who we are.
Yeah, just trusting that the person that we are, and that it's hard to do. It's a constant struggle and
Mm.
constant tension. But when we're trying to be someone else, it kind of fractures us inside. We're not being true to ourselves, and so we're not presenting a true self to the world. So yeah, to trust who I am.
And that takes a bit of you have to be a bit brave for that, and that's why we're saying to have the
Yeah,
courage to pursue your dream, because sometimes it feels scary,
it
especially when
does.
it comes to comfort zones, right? Especially when you've done the thing a certain way, and then you get challenged by doing. I mean, even just looking at technology these
Yeah,
days, every day
yeah.
is a challenge. Something new is coming up. You have
So
to,
true.
be willing to try it. Just like with my
Mhm.
kids, I don't want them sticking their nose up if I make dinner,
Yes,
and they say, "I don't like it." I'm
I
like,
know.
"How do you know? You haven't
Right,
even
you haven't
tried
tried
it."
it. Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I just have found that to be a helpful little piece of advice, as in this world too, where you can just see everybody's highlight reel every day, and if we begin to compare ourselves against that, it can become a downer.
Oh yeah, a
Um,
comparison trap thing, right? Oh my
yes,
gosh, especially with us
exactly.
women, we like try to look at somebody else and say, "Well, she has her life together," but she isn't showing you everything. She's not
This-
showing you the dirty dishes
It's so
and the
true.
washing that's a week old, and the hair that's not working, and the teenager who's just being, keeping her up at night. But
Right.
and I think that's what I love about all these, wonderful speakers on the summit is you're so willing to share and be vulnerable with our audience. And I think that's key, because I find for me, I don't know about you, would probably agree that as soon as I started saying, you know what, this is me, and I'm willing to be vulnerable, and just this is who I am, and you like me if you do, if you don't, well, can't do anything about it.
Right, exactly. Someone asked me after I wrote my last book, they said, so how do you feel? You put so much of yourself out there into the world. And, I don't really think about it. I think that is my life is kind of a gift to the world. So is everyone's, and if we're holding back, then we're not learning all that we can from each other. So yeah, that being your true self and knowing that everyone has ups and downs and everyone has successes and failures. But what we tend to celebrate, of course, is the success. But so it takes a lot.
What would you say, like, if somebody's listening and, like, I'm busy writing my third book, but it's the first book about my actual story. So it's vulnerable.
Yes.
And I keep having these moments where I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that. What are they? What advice would you give for somebody to get over that sort of fear factor of, is it maybe because we're so worried about what people will think?
Yeah.
Or what helped you getting past that?
Yeah, I do think we are concerned. For me, I'm concerned about how it will be received by other people. I think, I don't know, I'm 53, so I wonder if that's a factor too, that I've lived some time and had some people reject me. And then I've tried to fit myself into other people's boxes and expectations of me, and that doesn't work well for me. And I do think that our authentic stories have value in the world. And so if we're, I was talking to someone yesterday about book writing, and she said, it's just so hard. And I said, yeah, it's like having a baby. And when you're having a baby,
I say that too.
Yes. Well, when you're having a baby, that you're just all exposed, right, to that room, whoever is there, you're just all exposed. And so it's like having a baby in so many ways, and that it's hard. It digs from the deepest parts of you, but also it exposes you to the world. And you just don't really have much in the moment. You're not so concerned about that exposure because of the process that you're going through. And then the result of it is so worth it in the end.
Exactly. Once we've actually got through the painful stage, the pushback stage. And that's what I think is, the babies that we're delivering, which are books and businesses and nonprofits and, whatever it is that God's put on your heart that, you feel that you need to do. Just think of it as that once you've birthed this baby, it's going to grow and nurture, and it's going to have its own effect on the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's going to take on its own life. It's going to do its own thing and have its own impact in the world. And it's amazing still when people contact me to say, this is what your book did for me. And that was not even anything I intended, but wow, what it can do once it gets out there in the world. So
tell us about your second tip. What other confidence, courage builders do we have?
Yeah. So, and I kind of alluded to it before, I really do believe in going through the doors that open. And I think that is another distraction that we have as a result of being able to see so much of what other people are doing. Someone will get a speaking gig, or they'll get a book contract, or they'll have this great launch of their business. And we feel like, or I have felt like, oh, it's happening for them, but nothing is happening for me. And I have had to learn to just wait, to learn to celebrate their successes and the open doors that my friends and peers and colleagues are having, and wait for my door to open. And then when it opens, to go through it, because the door that opened for me was publishing, and I wasn't looking for that door to open. So one thing is that we can feel like all the doors are closed to us and get mad and try to push open doors that don't belong to us and that are for someone else, when really we just need to wait for a door to open, or a door will open to us and we're like, that's not the door I wanted. No, that one scares me. So it takes courage for both. It takes courage to wait patiently while it seems like all around you, everyone's got these wide open doors that they're walking through, and they're getting awards and they're getting accolades and they're wearing ball gowns, and you're in your yoga pants just eating chocolate, wishing that a door would open.
And especially when you talk about like the pushing the doors, like I am terrible that way. Like,
right, exactly.
I'm very impatient.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, how about now? And now? How about now? And wanting to push them open. But what I realize is sometimes the Lord has allowed me to walk through those doors that I've insisted I want to go through. But what he does, as a gentleman that he is, he sits there, he says, okay, you want that? Just like
Yep.
with my daughter, when she wants a whole box of cookies, and I say, you want that? Okay, eat the whole box. I'll
Yes.
wait here until you're sick and you're over it, and then we'll go through the right place.
Yes.
And he's let me do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've realized by pushing something open, I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the talent, and I didn't have the mindset to handle it.
Yes.
And it imploded. So not a good idea.
It's so true. And that time where no doors are open and you're in your yoga pants eating chocolate, that's the time to develop those skills and that talent so that when the door does open, you're ready for it.
And I think a lot of us women, we sort of, it also reminds me of that scripture, like don't despise small beginnings, because we kind of think, and again, I was born in the 70s, and I always grew up on the Karate Kid, Miyagi, wax on, wax off. I'm like, why am I doing this? This is so frustrating. Like, I don't see any point in this, but it's what I call the boot camp years. We're building our strength, we're training, there's things we're learning that we don't actually know about, so we can't go kick some butt.
Yeah, I like that. The boot camp years. I'm going to write that down and remember that one for myself, because I'm sure boot camp years are coming for me. And so it takes courage to wait. It takes courage not to try to push through some doors that aren't ours. And then it takes courage to go through the door when it does open, because it's usually a surprise.
So what would you say is your last tip? So we've gone through, let's recap. So what the first one?
Trust who you are. Yep, be who you are.
The second one
is to go through the doors that open, and don't try to open doors that aren't yours to go through. And then I would say the third is to remember that God is at work upstream. We might not, a pastor said this to us in a sermon once, we may not see anything happening right here, but upstream, God is always at work on our behalf for our good and for his glory. And that pastor used the example of the Israelites crossing the Red Sea, and how when they got to the sea, it was roiling and churning. And then when Moses extended his staff, the sea parted for them to walk through. But that parting had to begin upstream. And God knew that they were coming. He knew when they would arrive at the shore, and he was prepared ahead of time to part the sea for them. So we may not be able to see what's going on, but God is always at work. So just be patient. Keep dreaming. I think I have a pillow on my couch that says, don't quit your daydream. And I just believe that firmly. Just keep dreaming, and then keep working, and be patient, and know that God is at work upstream.
And also, I think what would be also a good thing to mention is, your purpose and your gift and your calling and what God has planned for you is for you. No one else can steal it. And I think a lot of us women, we start worrying that if we either we're too old, we're too young, we're too late, we don't have the skills, we don't have that, and we kind of feel we're not ready, or we don't have everything. But I believe God gives us what we need when we need it.
I agree.
But it's the patience thing we're working on.
Yeah, and trusting him in that it's going to show up. What I need is going to show up at just the right time. And I think if we take a moment, some of us, and just think back on our lives, that is pretty much enough of a track record that we can see, okay, yes, I can trust. And every time we're in that situation, we think he's not going to come through for me this time, but he does every time, every single time. And even when it seems like he doesn't, he does. He knows what's best for us, and he knows the plans that he has for us.
Exactly. He's putting together like a chessboard, and he's playing this game of strategy. All the other pieces that have to go into place for these things to work. Yeah. And also, you mentioned in the beginning of your story how, with journaling or writing in your diary, I think that's also a really good way, which I keep track of. So I can look back and say, okay, God, you did come through. Like when I'm feeling really like, oh, it's not working, I go back and look, and they'll be like, no, actually, just go back and remember like 9 months ago or 2 years ago. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
How quickly we forget. Yeah, we forget quickly. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to say thanks for all the great content. But if everyone listening, Deidra's actually offered a great giveaway gift as well. So make sure you go to mimikacooney.com, click on the Summit tab, and you can download her gift. Tell everybody a little bit about the gift and what it is.
Yeah, it's called Make Your Dreams Come True, and it's a cheat sheet for the tough days. So, for those of us who are trying to work up the courage, or we've just lost that courage, or we know we need courage, and some days we have tough days and we lose sight of our dream. This is just a cheat sheet for you to print off, and you can put it in at your desk or by your bed, or stick it in a book that you're reading, just to remind you when things get tough of those 3 points that we talked about today to help you pursue your dream and have the courage to do so.
Exactly. And that's what we want to do. We want to help you take those steps and activate yourself, because it's great to hear the content, but to keep yourself accountable, which is why I love printing things and writing things out, because it's a commitment to myself to take that action. And that's really what we, hoping and praying for you, for those of you who are listening. So if you enjoyed the content we've had to share today, you go ahead and share it with your friends. I'm sure there's somebody you know who needs to hear what Deidra had to say. So go ahead and click the share buttons below or to the side of the video. Or if you're listening online or someone forwarded you an email, make sure to go and sign up at mimikacooney.com and click on the Summit tab in order to get those goodies, because 23 of our speakers have kindly donated their time and talent and expertise to share with you. So make sure you go and do that today. But let everybody know, Deidra, how can they find you online? What's the best place to connect?
Yes, you can find me. I love Instagram. So that's my favorite place to hang out. And I'm there at Deidra Riggs, just my name, DeidraRiggs. And then I'm also on Facebook, and you can find me on my blog, which is also DeidraRiggs.com.
Exactly. And definitely make sure you reach out to her if you've enjoyed what Deidra had to say. Go and reach out to her on Facebook or, her website, and, or especially like any aha moments or any sort of light bulb ideas that you've had. We would love to stand with you and celebrate your wins. So make sure to comment below this video and let us know the greatest lesson that you've learned, or your takeaway tips for the day. We would love to be in support of you, because we can only survive in community, right? So I'm going to say thanks again, Deidra, for joining me, and everyone for joining us on the Summit series. Until next time, take care. Become a partner and join the Mimika TV family today.